If you're building n8n automations for a client, the last thing you want to have happen is for things to not work and to break. And worst case scenario, for those things to break and you not even know about them. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can get notified of different n8n errors, how to try and prevent those errors in the first place. And this has saved me many times. There's been a few times my clients have been interacting with my automations. I get a notification of an error. I go into Slack or into Microsoft Teams and I see them typing in the chat. And I went ahead and just let them know, hey, there's a problem here. I'm looking into it before they can even send their message. And it looks a lot better than if they have no response from you or you have no way to actually know if an error is going to occur. So let's dive in. This is a very simple automation, but what I'm going to show you in this video can work with any of your current automations. And here we just have a very simple GET request to my website called syncedsystems.com. We have nothing else really configured here. On either of these tabs, everything is default aside from the URL. You can test this with whatever URL you want. And then in this node right here, I'm simply setting success to true. So we see success is true right here on the end. Let's go ahead and run this. And as you could probably expect, everything is going to work. That's fantastic. At the end here, we see success is true. And so everything ran correctly. Now, if I go into here, and let's say that this broke for whatever reason, there could be a number of reasons why this might not work. To simulate an error, I'm just going to add an extra M at the end here. So this URL is no longer valid. And then I can go ahead and run this. And now this isn't even ran because the workflow execution stopped. So there's a couple different ways we can get around fixing this. First of all, if this is something where you're trying to read something or write something to a Google Sheet, or you're using OpenAI or Claude or some third-party tool outside of n8n, and you're getting rate limited, the easiest solution to that is going to be Retry On Fail. Let's go ahead and enable this. So here's the maximum number of retries, let's say 3, and then we're going to wait 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, in between retries. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just keep everything the default, and then I'm going to click on Execute Workflow. We now see this little icon here, Retry On Fail. We saw that it actually tried a few times, and it wasn't instant, but it eventually didn't work because, of course, we have not changed the URL. So this isn't the best example when it comes to continuously retrying, but hopefully you get the concept here. Now, the next thing we want to do is going to be looking on the on error dropdown. We have a couple options. One is stop workflow, which is the default. The other is continue, which is basically just ignore that and then continue on. We also have continue with error output. Let's click on continue and let's try this out. If I run this, this is taking a few seconds here. And ultimately it did give us an error because syncedsystems.com with 2 M's does not exist. However, this still ran over here. We have success is true. So whenever we go into our node, if we have on error continue, it's effectively going to just ignore that error and continue on anyway. This could be useful in times where you do not actually care about the response of that node, and it's not mission critical for that node to work correctly. But the thing that I use most often is going to be continue with error as output. So if I move this over here, we now have a new branch called error. I'm going to go ahead and click on this node and use Command D or Control D on Windows. And we can now duplicate this node, and we're going to set success to false. Now, if I run this, it's going to try syncedsystems.com with 2 M's, doesn't work. It eventually gives up, and we now run the error branch. Now, this is useful because at some point you can do other things here to try and log the error, but there is a really good way to do error logging, which is the way that I recommend everyone does this. Not saying that this error branch cannot be useful. I do use it from time to time, but the most important thing to do in this video is to set up an error handler workflow. So we're going to make a new workflow. I usually put this at the base of my n8n workflow, so not in any folders. And we can click on New First Step, then do a search for error. And here we have error trigger. Go ahead and click on that, and then click Test this trigger. Then here we have access to this test data. For now, let's go ahead and pin this, and then we can head over and we can notify ourselves of any errors going wrong in any way we want. We can send ourselves an email, we can send a message in Slack, we can send a message in Discord, whatever you want to do. For the clients I work with, I send myself a message on Discord because I usually have that open, and I send myself an email. For simplicity, I'm just going to send myself an email. So I'm going to select Gmail. I'm going to send a message. And then from here, select your Gmail account. And to send, I'm going to send to my own email. The subject will be error. We're going to use text, and I'm going to change the message to an expression. Within here, there's going to be error. Then afterwards, we can drag the message right into here. And then we can say the URL, which we could just drag the URL right here. If you look at this, this is going to be an actual workflow execution. So this is going to send you right to the error message. For example, if I go over to executions here, it'll send you right to here, for example. And this is going to go ahead and allow you to easily one click, go into here, and you can now look at what went wrong. You can click debug in editor, and then you're good to go. As you can tell, that actually reverted back the current testing nodes to what we currently had inside that errored workflow. So there's a couple things to do here because we're not fully done yet. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And notice the name here is Recording Error Handler. If I head back over here, in order to make this work, I'm going to click on the three dots, click on Settings. Under Error Workflow, to notify when this one errors, we can select Recording Error Handler, which is the workflow that we just talked about, and then I click on Save. So as you can tell there, I had a couple of them, one for myself, another one for a different client I work with, and then in my other clients who have their own in accounts, I set this up as well. And then I automatically send myself a message through their Gmail node. So let's go ahead and run this. It's going to try a couple times. It's going to eventually fail. And then here, it's going to run this node. Now, if I come back over into here and I click on executions, we don't actually see any live executions, only this test one. It's important to note a couple things about how this node here works. It's not going to work if I'm doing manual testing. So for example, if I make sure that this is going to error here and I test it, it's not going to run because we are manually running this workflow. This node over here is only going to run if we have a live production error. Otherwise, you get notified all the time if you're testing something, and most workflows are going to error when you're first building them. So that'll be kind of annoying. So exactly how do we get this to work? Well, I can go ahead and get rid of the manual trigger. I can go over to schedule. We are going to run this every 5 seconds. This is temporary. Make sure if you test this alongside with me and you're on the cloud version that you disable your workflow or delete this trigger afterwards. Otherwise, it's going to use up a lot of your credits. I'm just doing this for a simple test. We're going to connect. We're going to publish. We're going to click on executions. And then we should see some live executions without this text execution right here, as we see the first one coming in. If I click on this, we now see there's no error. And so with that said, if we come over here and refresh, we will also see nothing because this previous workflow is running correctly. So in this case, we have not actually had an error that was not handled because we actually have an on error branch. Super important. With that said, if I now go in and clean this up a bit, I head into this node, settings, on error, stop workflow. This is what will actually throw an error. And just for speed, I'm going to disable Retry On Fail. So we're at the completely default settings. Go ahead and clean this up and publish. Now, if we go into executions, we're going to start seeing some errors every 5 seconds, as we see right here. And now if I come back over to here and we refresh or wait for the auto refresh, we should now see some actual errors. So heading back into here real quick, I'm going to unpublish this just so I stop using my credits. And now if I go into any of these that do not have the test symbol, we're now going to see that it sent me an email. And here's what that email looks like. So here's the error message. I can click on this URL right here. It's going to open this up to the exact workflow. And then from here, I can look into this and examine why the error happened so I can go in and fix it. Super useful if you're working with clients. You want to get ahead of those errors before they complain to you. And so they should never know that an error happened. Now, if you want another quick n8n hack where you can get practically unlimited scheduled workflows, then click on this video right here.